Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel here as well. How's it going, Merriel?
How's it going, guys?
Yeah, sorry we're a little bit late, but better late than never. And of course, we would not want to miss this episode. Today, we're going to be talking about all things beginner kayaks, and what to look for and all of that. Merrill is a great person to talk to because I know he has tons of experience on the water with kayaks and fishing. I've been worked for FTU for a long time, working in the industry for a little bit. So definitely if you guys have any questions who are live with us, feel free to ask them in the chat. And of course, if you want to join us live, just go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. There you can find when we go live and join us live and ask questions, interact with us, ask questions, and do all that stuff. Also, we have great giveaways on there. We gave away a Knocking Tail Lures prize package over the weekend. Sometimes we give away rods, reels, a bunch of stuff. So if you want some good gear and all that, feel free to join up in there. And of course, like I said, before we kind of get deep into this, let's talk about some of our sponsors. We have our Knocking Tail Lures. They recently just joined us. They are a great lure company. If you go on our Facebook page, there are some. I have a picture of like a 6-pound flounder I recently caught. That was on a Knocking Tail lure. Great soft plastic. And you just look at Knocking Tail Lures online, and you can find them and see what's up with that. Also, we have Great Printing. They do our towels and some of our merch for us. The towels and the buffs that we kind of get. Aaron does great work there. And of course, if you're looking for a great kayak fishing page, DSKA, Dirty South Kayaking Anglers, look them up online, and you can find some good stuff. So, I guess before we kind of dive right into beginners and kayaks and all that stuff, Merrill, how about we start with, how did you start with kayaks and fishing? Actually, just start with kayaking.
Oh, kayaking. I think it started off with me just looking at an area and thinking like, man, if I had a boat or something to get to that area, and I'd probably do a lot better than it, because I was mainly bank fishing and I was studying patterns out of Clear Lake off the bank. And I was like, man, if I was just a little bit further, if I had a boat or something to get there. And I think I was working at a company, and one of the individuals was like, hey, man, you ever fish from a kayak? And I was like, man, I've never even seen a kayak out there. He's like, yeah, man, I got this one that has rod holders in it. And I think this is about 15 years ago, somewhere around there. And that's when I started. He's like, man, you could use mine. I don't even use it. It's brand new. You want to try it? I was like, yeah, man, I'll try it. I took it out there, and I kind of got into it was mainly night fishing, because I would work during the day, and then put my kids to sleep, and then then I'd try after that. Well, at that time it was just my daughter, and so I gave it a shot and jumped on the kayak. I remember being unstable at first, being nervous, trying to find my center of gravity, and paddling out to a spot up current, and then getting to the spot and just catching a lot of fish. And I was like, man, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And it really opened up my game to fishing.
Yeah.
So
actually, a very similar story. And I even tell you where I was at. Back in 2011 and 12, I was still in college at the time, and I was fishing on the bank at the Diversionary Canal right around August. And what I would do is I was carrying a bait bucket with an aerator, like a 5-gallon bucket with shrimp, and just walk all the way down the bank. And I was fishing those oyster beds right off the bank with like a popping cork and shrimp. Man,
that was my same method, by the way, too, Jonathan. Popping cork and shrimp. No lie, dude. I would cast net some shrimp,
Mm-hmm.
and then use that shrimp. And that shrimp lasted a lot longer than the shrimp that they sell at some of these bait camps
Yeah.
around this area.
Yeah. But yeah, I was walking down, and my pattern was around like 4 o'clock. Um, Around 4 o'clock, I would actually across the diversionary canal. There was this lone patch of reeds because it's all just mud, kind of sand bank right there. Across the diversionary canal, there's actually this one lone patch of like this of these reeds, and around 4 o'clock every day in the afternoon, these reds would just come up and bust up on them, like just completely destroy that shoreline. They just go up and down, and you could see shrimp jump out everywhere. And Yeah, so it was amazing. And I obviously I was across. I couldn't get over there. Uh, and I started researching how can I get over there, and the one thing that came up was kayaks. So after diving deep into Texas kayak fishing, the forum, TexasKayakFisherman.com, I ended up with my first two kayaks because I bought them as a pair, two Tarpon 160s. Um, and my first trip, I got over there. I just paddled across, had my first ever limit of redfish. Uh, just because they were just there and using live shrimp under popping cork, and I thought it was easy. That it's just that
Right,
easy.
right. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. That was man. It's like almost identical to my story because mine was a Tarpon 160 as well,
yeah,
and yeah, and it was just made limits a lot easier than trying to catch them from a bank. But it was almost identical story. That's
yeah.
funny, but
Unfortunately, kayak fishing is not that easy, but I think one of the questions, and we're just gonna actually go right into it. Well, one of the things that a lot of we see online, and I know you've seen it, I've seen it. What's the best kayak to get? I have
I,
my own answer, and I'm sure that you do too. So let's start with you. How do you respond to somebody when they say, "What is the best kayak to get?"
it depends on your application on what you're
Yes,
trying to accomplish.
yes,
So that I mean, I know everybody's like, "Oh, I know what he's gonna say," and no, I really believe on whatever you're trying to do. There's a kayak there for what you're trying to accomplish. I'm gonna give you an example. I wouldn't take an Outback on the Devil's River. You know,
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't take any pedal drive system on the Devil's River because maybe that's your style of kayaking.
Hmm.
And they do catch bass out there. Shout out to my buddy that caught that big bass not too long ago out there. Different strokes for different folks. Carry on. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jonathan. There.
No, no, no. No, I totally agree. And I know, we jokingly say Hobie all the way because, or Jackson, or we have all of our diehard fans out there for whatever, um, whatever brand that they love. And of course, like I am partial to Hobie because I think they're a really good fishing platform. However, um, it is based upon what you're trying to do, whatever your budget is. And for me, growing up in a retail environment, both the high end and the low end. I've worked at not only Academy and Dick's Sporting Goods, but also worked at FTU, where FTU sold the higher end fishing kayaks as Jackson, Native, and of course Hobie. Um, you're working with people who have all these different types of budgets. Some of them they want to spend no more than $500, and some of them they have the sky's the limit,
Right.
whatever they can afford.
Right.
But the question I always ask, what is your plan for fishing? Because most of them, when they came for buy kayaks, are always for fishing. So, what is your plan for fishing? Are you going to be fishing flats? Is this going to be like in a pond? Are you? Is this just like I'm going to be fishing once every other month kind of thing? So I also come across where are you going to store these kayaks? Some of these people who came in, they have like a camper, so they couldn't put a Hobie in there, but they can put like a 10-foot Pelican, and they're just traveling around. That's what they can do. So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is, what is your plan for fishing? And of course, people are, like I said earlier, they're going to have. You should get a Jackson. You should get a Hobie, or a Wilderness. If you plan on fishing deep in the marsh, maybe you don't need the pedal drive. maybe just a paddle kayak to get into the shallow area is good enough for you.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you on that, but I'm back there in the marshes on my outback. But I always pick up my drive, man, and it's like a lot of people get under the notion like, man, I got to drive. I can get in the marsh. I'm like, man, you can pull that drive up, you know. You can pull that, you can pull that drive up, and then get in those shallow flats. I mean, me and my buddy Juan's on here too. We've been way back there, inches, and on our outbacks and pulling out a drive and paddling. It does make it difficult when I'm in my 360 back there.
Yeah.
And that wind's pumping in those back marshes and pushes that big kayak around. So that wouldn't be an application for you if you don't have that kind of. That takes a lot of strength, stamina to deal with that, especially in big marshes.
Mm-hmm.
But
actually, I was gonna say for those of you in chat, just put what your favorite brand is. Just put your favorite brand in there, and I want to see what you guys are saying. But actually, just speaking kind of on the drive and non-drive, the whole thing about pedal and paddling, and where I'm going to go into, if you're not familiar with pedal kayaks, there are pedal kayaks out there. Technology has advanced past just traditional paddling. Nowadays, there's a multitude of pedal-driven kayaks where you use your feet to you have either a prop drive or a fin drive where it kicks up water and it propels you forward. And basically, every single kayak company has their own pedal drive out there on the market now. But kind of let's kind of talk about the pros and cons of each one. So, for a pedal drive, I think it's easy, right?
Right.
You can go further.
Have you been in the like the Slayers and the Jacksons? You've been in those? Okay.
Yeah, I've been in most all of them.
Yeah. Okay. So. Good. So have I. I remember test running that Slayer.
Yeah.
And many years ago. Anyways, carry on, man. I was just curious.
Yeah. So I guess like what's the pros and cons of the pedal versus the paddle? And let's start with the pedal. So one thing is obviously the distance. I feel most of us can kind of our lower body is built better than our upper body because you're using kind of different muscles when you paddle. Therefore, you can go further pedaling than paddling. Though I know some people who have really good developed upper bodies, they can go for days paddling. So I think for most people, I think pedaling is easier. Is there anything else you want to say about pedaling? Any other pros that you can see with that?
Pedaling, there's some pedal system that is not a lot of strain. You can adjust the tension on those pedals. Where one thing I do recommend is for pedaling is try just to relax yourself and don't exert yourself. Don't try to force yourself because then it's wasted energy. You just you'll get there and just take your time and pedal whatever pedal system, try to use it nice and slowly. And you don't want to get worn out on a trip, that you're trying to accomplish long distances. So that would be one of the things that I would add is the long distance trips. Those long trips definitely are a lot better upwind and upstream. It's a lot better with my opinion is with a pedal drive versus a paddle kayak. I know I've been in a lot of trouble with my Tarpon 160 going upstream and upwind, and a pedal kayak made it a big, huge difference. I remember one time coming back behind the tiki, coming off the tiki, around the tip of the Tiki Island to go back to the Jones Bay boat ramp, and that wind was not in my favor, nor was the tide.
Yeah.
But yes, long distances would be a pro on that one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Another thing too, the ability to fish while keeping yourself in place or moving, I think is a huge plus. Actually, this past weekend, where we were targeting flounder at some of these drains that we were targeting with the paddle kayak. I mean, I guess you could conceivably stake out right there, but the way that I found, so actually, it was very interesting. So we had a outgoing tides, really strong outgoing most of the day. So basically, we positioned ourselves outside so the water is pushing us out. So we're pushing up against this drain. Um, but I was expecting it to be loaded with flounder because the flounder would just sit there and let all this food come out and then they would eat. And we kept throwing in the middle of the drain, throwing in the middle of the drain, nothing. And we hit multiple drains and nothing. And I was very perplexed because a couple weeks ago they were there. It turns out they were there. They were just on the sides. They were on the either side. They were on the slack side of how that water was coming out. But basically, what I was doing was I was kind of positioning myself back and forth, left and right of this of that drain, and eventually I got where the angle was just right, where I could get it up into the drain, and it would push it right out and push it into that slack current water. And once it got there, thump.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, so I think being able to kind of consistently position yourself
Hmm.
is a benefit. And of course, if you're against current, being able to position yourself in a single location because you can pedal and not, if you can't anchor or anything like that, I think that is a big benefit as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course, there's not to say that paddle kayaks are obsolete. I definitely think that going deep into the marsh whenever you have like inches of water, I think of course your paddle kayak really shine there. Um, I know you said that you take your kayak back in there, but for me, because I like my drive, and of course I don't really target redfish too much, so I don't go back there that often. I stay out in the open water, in the deep water. um, but going back there, I've taken it back there, and it's much easier with. I went with Jared one time, and it was I had my Hobie, and I know it would have been much better if I had a tarpon than even the Revo, which is one of the
Mm.
better paddling Hobies. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and of course another good pro of a paddle kayak, it is cheaper than it is going to be cheaper than most of your pedal drive kayaks. So
Yeah.
the entry point is much lower.
Right. Yeah. I know there's a guy down south named Glenn Madison,
Mhm.
and man, he loves tearing up those waves and that skinny. I think it's a skinny kayak, and I know a lot of guys. They like the stealth kayaks. Those
Mhm.
for those offshore people that like to get in there, and the speed too. There's a lot of speed. Some of those are speed demons, and they're out there. They like it for exercise. I think Glenn does it for exercise.
Mhm.
But you'll see him if you guys don't. He's not in a pedal drive. He's in a paddle kayak, and he gets good exercise out of it. So it's definitely a good exercise. And that's an advantage a paddle kayak would have over, I think, in pedal. And I mean, there's other ones too, but that's one of the main ones is a good exercise. I remember being in shape a lot. I would be not eating tacos with a beer belly, sitting in my
Yeah.
pedal drive. I'm just kidding. But
Whenever you're in shape, were there dinosaurs roaming around?
yeah, but yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits that a paddle has, and it really depends on your application, what
Mhm.
you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I mentioned it earlier, but one of the differences between the two is that and you kind of mentioned it as well. You're working on these two different muscle groups. So obviously, when you're paddling, you're not only using you're actually supposed to be using your chest. It's your chest and a little bit of your arms. You're not supposed to be really using your entire arm strength to do it. It's a whole upper body kind of thing, and also your core as well. Kind of sitting, making sure that kind of all your energy is being pushed into the left and right of the kayak. Um, whereas if you have a pedal kayak, you're also still engaging your core, but a lot of it has to do with kind of your glutes and your lower legs, and to kind of getting that the propulsion going. So uh, that's something to take consideration. I know a lot of people who get into it, they have wrist issues or they have a shoulder issue where all they really want to do is they want to use that energy just to cast, and not expend all their energy paddling. So if that's the case, a pedal drive kayak is something you want to get. But again, just think about the application you want to use it for, and then you can find the kayak for you. And that brings us to another thing. Merriel, if somebody was looking at getting into kayaking, how would you figure out what's the best one for you?
That's a good question. For me, if
In
someone were
general,
to ask,
yeah. If
somebody
somebody's
comes up to
asking
me
you,
and
yeah.
I'm gonna ask him. Like I said, I'm gonna ask him first. What are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals for kayaking?
Mm-hmm.
If they're just fishing their own private lake, I mean, it's totally different than, hey, I'm into tournament fishing. Those are two different kayaks for me. Or man, I like to get a lot of exercise and work up. Build up my upper body and stay in shape and get a good exercise out of it. I totally will point them in a different direction. And then the other two situations, I'm bass fishing private, bass fishing in private lakes, totally different than those other situations. I would
Mm-hmm.
put them in a totally different kayak. I'm fishing big waters, offshores all the time. That one would be a totally different kayak than all those other four situations. I want to do all four of those things, uh, so
Get a
there's
boat. No.
man, I had a boat, right? I had a boat
Yeah,
for
yeah.
maybe
You told me.
several years, and then that sucker was not getting used at all. I mean, once I got in a kayak, it's like, why, man? Things are great in a kayak. I really love kayak fishing. I
Yeah.
actually just got off the water not too long ago. We went last night, and buddy caught a nice big trout.
Nice.
But yeah.
And actually, speaking of boat, I actually think, and this is me personally, and I don't speak for everybody, but I have found that. I mean, I think eventually, whenever I'm more financially secure in my life, of course, that's never going to happen because I have a kid now. But I don't ever expect for me to own a boat, like a skiff or anything like that. But I think that I would never want to, mainly because I think just the kayak is just so versatile. Because one, it's easy to transport. I don't have to hook it up and do anything. I don't get to. I don't have the chance to ever become a Memorial Day meme of me trying to back up a trailer into the water. That's never going to happen. And you can launch practically anywhere, with a kayak. Just find some water and, oh, it looks good, let's hop in and go there. Whereas with the boat, you have to find an established boat ramp. There's for at least for the state of Texas, there's no insurance associated with it, with a
Mhm.
kayak. I don't have to get a title or anything. Of course, now if you put a motor on your kayak, then it becomes a boat. But I feel like there's just so many benefits to having kayak. Oh, also, I think it makes you a better fisherman.
Oh,
Mainly because,
without a doubt, without a doubt. You
yeah,
mainly because you gotta do a lot more homework. I mean,
yeah,
this is you got to because you don't have the luxury from running from spot A to B to
yeah,
C. It's like, hey, look, it's gonna take me about an hour or two to get there, or maybe an hour, and it's gonna take time, and you're kind of like time committed. You know, I've been on tournament day where I ran to like three different spots
yeah,
before, but it was time was very tight then.
yeah. Like you said, I think that wherever you launch and wherever you fish, even though your range is expanded, you know, from the bank, you can only fish that bank, and then you start to wade, and you can only go as far as that you can walk, and then with a kayak, you can go further than that and cover even more water. But once you really get into that, you know, what your range is, you're gonna have to learn that area very, very well, and it kind of forces you to learn it very well. Much like if you keep fishing that same bank the whole entire time, you're gonna learn that bank very well, um, and you're gonna figure out, oh, the fish are right up against these rocks at these certain time of year. They're further out, and it's the same thing when you're in a kayak, but now you have an expanded, a more manageable range. Whereas, like you said, with the boat, let's just it's not happening here. Let's just
Yeah,
go 20 miles this way and we'll figure it out
yeah,
either there. Oh,
yeah,
they're not there either. Let's go another 20 miles, and it's before you know it, oh, there's $100 of gas right there just
yeah,
gone.
yeah. Yeah. But you go east to West Bay and no problem for the
Oh
boat.
yeah.
jump on the icy dub. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So another thing that I've come across actually working in kayak shops and seeing online is the conversation of stability and speed. And you sport the Outback, right? You have the Outback, Hobie Outback.
I have the Outback 360, and I also have a Compass.
Okay.
And yeah, so I have those three. And I had a Manta Ray. I noticed somebody put that out there, but I had a Manta Ray for many years. I think I had a Manta Ray since 2012. And I had that one. I recently let that one go just because I felt like somebody else could enjoy that kayak. That was a kayak that I didn't use as much, but I did enjoy being in it
Yeah.
just because of the functionality of a Manta Ray.
Yeah.
It had a lot of function to it.
So for me, I personally run the Revo 13. It's like 29 inches across, I think, maybe 28 and a half. And for me, I guess one of the things that you have to understand whenever you're looking at kayaks, you sacrifice if you want stability, that's fine. If that's what you want in a kayak, you know you're not you don't balance very well, or you want to stand up. Whenever you have a stable kayak, you're sacrificing speed and stability versus stability. You generally can't have both. If you have both, you have a boat probably. So for mine, like I said, like 29 and a half, maybe 30 inches for the Revo. I generally, I can stand up in that kayak, but I wouldn't recommend it for everybody because, it's not the most stable platform. But with the newer Outback or the Pro Angler, I tell people, those things are like 32, 34 inches across. And that kayak, you can do cartwheels in it and be completely fine. So in your in your experience, is stability a big deal for people or?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, like some people, it really depends on the style of fishing they like to do as well, but also the size of the individual, right? Some people are a bigger set person and they need to be in those bigger, more stable kayaks. I've taken out clients that I wouldn't put them in anything other than a PA 14 versus an Outback or a Revo 13. That wouldn't work for those kind of people because those also are rated for a certain weight,
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So one of the things that I see online, it's a very good kayak. It's a very popular kayak, and I actually think it's actually gotten much better compared to what it was originally. But like the Bass Pro Shop Ascend, that's a very popular brand that people get. It's a very good start. I think it's a very good starter platform, especially now with the new seats that they have on them. They're very stable kayaks, but they're just a pain to paddle. But that's because you sacrifice that stability for speed. Um, and For me, I'm not like I don't go in the marsh. I don't really go in sight cast in the marsh that often. I do it on occasion, but like again, it goes back. Like we were mentioning earlier, it goes back to what is your application? For me, I'm out in the flats chasing trout. I don't need a sight cast that often, so the ability and need for me to stand is almost non-existent. So I don't need a stable kayak. But kind of going out there when you're looking at a kayak, how wide do you think is stable? What would you consider stable? Um,
For my size of person, for me, like my height and size, I would
I
go.
guess let's go in general.
Um,
Just think
I'm gonna
about your
say the
average
Outback.
person.
I'm gonna say the Outback is pretty stable. That's where stable and stability and speed are where they meet. Right there is on that Outback.
Yeah.
Is that the question you're asking
Well,
for?
I was just I was actually trying to get a number. Whenever you look at kayaks, obviously they give you
12.
they give you the
12.
width, the width and also the length.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So like a 12-footer. I wouldn't put. Man, I've seen so many people in problems with 10-footers. I've actually been out on Titlam Tatlum, dude lose everything, and a 10-foot Pelican, and his gear was worth more. His life was worth more
Yeah.
than than that kayak. And then I've been in one at the Causeway where a guy had a hole. Me and Nick were hauling his ass back to hauling him back to the shore. But that 10-footer is just for the wind that was there in that area. It was just a 10-foot kayak doesn't belong in there. For that situation. So I would say 12-foot. I think 12-foot is about right, and about I'm gonna go with like 28 to 30 inches
Actually,
wide.
I think it's actually, for me, I would say a little bit wider than that.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, the PA 12, I believe, is 32 inches across.
Right.
And I believe the 14 is 34 inches
Correct.
across.
Yeah.
So I think 30 to 32 is where it starts to get stable.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right. Maybe I just I got my knees, I got my
yeah,
pirate legs
yeah,
under me, and
yeah. You got your
I
sea
can
legs
pop up.
all
Yeah,
good
I got
already.
yeah. There you go, sea legs. That's
Uh,
where yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think 30 to 32 is where you start to get the stability, and of course it goes up from there. You get to 30. There are some kayaks, I believe, like the new canoe is like 36, and those are just completely like a complete floating platform. Like yeah, what is it? There's a kayak, and it is the Diablos. The Diablos, they're like 34 to 36 inches.
Oh,
Um,
dang.
yeah, and those are really nice, stable platforms, and those are designed for fly fishing, and all that stuff. So, but I'm glad that you're kind of pulling me along. So, you bring up the length of the kayak. Yeah, so here in like ocean going inshore, even like big open lakes, the length is important because that gives you a bigger platform to use, and also to cut through water whenever you have some swells and whatnot. And you said 12 foot, and I totally agree. I think having a 12-foot kayak is very important because um, it just allows you to not only allows you to help you cover more water, but it just gives you a big enough platform to, if you happen to get caught out there, you have a decent platform to be in.
Right.
So
For sure, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I've seen too many people out there and big problems with 10-footers kayaks. And I'm not trying to put down all the 10. There might, if I was fishing a back private lake with not big water movement and stuff like that, those smaller kayaks I think would be pretty good for you. But for the fishing that we do here, and
mhm.
mostly we do it in these bays, in Galveston Bay, East Bay, West Bay, you got to be prepared for the elements, because sometimes wind finder and your wind apps are wrong. You know.
You mean every time?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
They're basically wrong all the time.
Yeah.
um, and actually, on occasion, actually, my Revo is out of commission right now because I snapped the rudder lines. So when I went out last weekend, I used my wife's kayak, which is a sport, which is 10 foot. And it wasn't a calm day by any means, but uh, I did it because I knew I could do it. Also, I had somebody else with me, so because I
Hmm.
never go alone, which is another thing. Uh, gain experience and learn with others is not only a lot more fun, but it's also much safer. Um, and I guess that kind of brings us to other gear that you should bring.
Right.
Um, so, and I know you probably had this whole thing prepared for this. What what other items should you bring with you for safety whenever you go kayaking?
A chicken boiler. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. For safety, definitely have a whistle, PFD on. Make sure you have your PFD on, one that fits you securely, safe. If you don't know what a safe PFD is, swing by, talk to Nick at Fishing Tackle Unlimited. He'll get you in one. He knows all the safety features, what fits you, and also being comfortable in one, so you're able to fish in it. At night, I like to use a 360 light. I know there's the way that Texas Park and Wildlife, um, they worded it a certain way on the page, but to be safe and cover all of the grounds, make sure you get you a 360 light that's over your head, at least 6 inch, or I would say even a foot over your head, and make sure it's bright enough for people to see you. I did mention whistle, right?
Yeah, you did.
So you need something to sound,
Yeah.
signal sound. I'm actually starting to take more and more safety things with me. I actually carry a radio now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I carry a radio with me. I know there's home beacons where like people can know where you're at. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is. Oh, take somebody with you all the time.
Yeah.
I know there's sometimes I go by myself, but
Same.
yeah. But
but
if I had the opportunity to take somebody
yeah.
with me, I'd definitely take somebody with me. And it's always fun just to share the story and experience with somebody.
Yeah. So, and I think I shared the story a couple episodes ago where I went BTB alone, and it was not a pleasant experience. I was catching fish, but it was just in the back of my mind if like something happened. I was a few miles from shore, and of course I've already saw sharks out there, so I know sharks are out there.
Yep.
It would have been much better to had somebody there with me, but also because to share your experiences with, um, and it's also for tournaments too. Having somebody there who can fish with you is always better. So you can
Phil brought up a good question too,
yeah.
a good answer. First aid kit. Thank you, Phil.
Yes.
I do have a first aid kit with
Mm-hmm.
me. One actually more serious than most because taking a first aid course I have to take every year
Mm-hmm.
to guide. I do have one of those. Thank you, Phil, for that. Also, I also have a safety kit in case I get in trouble out there. It's got the waterproof tape or the water tape and a whole bunch of stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
pliers and wires. Go ahead.
Yeah, during the winter, when it gets colder now, not only do I have all that stuff, but I also carry extra clothes and a towel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
because
yes.
if I get wet, if I get wet, and I know hypothermia can set up really quick. So being able to change into dry clothes and getting dry, that's very important. So that's definitely something that during the colder months you should probably pack as well.
I use wader pants during the winter times
Mm-hmm.
with pants warmers underneath. Those wader pants come in real handy, especially the winter times. But yeah, extra set of clothes, towels, keep warm. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
you are warm. I know you guys. Some of you are on here. I try to talk them out of not fishing in the cold, but we were actually out there when it was freezing, and nobody's like, "Who the hell's fishing out there?" I
Yeah.
remember being at the boat ramp, and guys like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Man, don't look at me. These customers wanted to go fishing." Like, I told them no, and they just didn't take no for an answer. But yeah, we went out there, fished in the cold, make sure you're warm. It's
Yeah.
another good thing.
Yeah. And actually, somebody, I think Curtis mentioned it in the chat. I definitely want to give out a shout out to David Pham and his Pham light, having his super bright 360 light. Those are definitely a must have item if you need a 360 light. So check them out as well. Um, so I know we covered a lot of information for kayaking. Um, if you had somebody come up and say, I don't have a lot of money. Let's say my budget's around $500, $600, um, and I want to get into kayak fishing. What kayak would you recommend for them?
I would say a used native, man. Those things are tough.
Hmm.
I mean, even if you can get a used Hobie for that price, that'd be awesome too.
Hmm.
But I mean, most likely you're going to find in that price range is a used native around that price range. I'm not sponsored by Native or anything like that. I just that seems to be like that price range for those kayaks. Definitely go see what I don't even know if we got kayaks at that price range at Fishing Tackle Unlimited.
Yeah, we don't
But yeah,
at Fish and Tackle Limit. You don't have many in that price range at all.
yeah, yeah,
um, yeah. So actually, there's a couple that I'd recommend. So I think somebody, yeah, Vincent Vo in the chat, he's mentioned a used wilderness tarpon. Uh,
yes,
yeah, you can definitely find one within the
yeah.
$500 to $600 range.
Wilderness too. Yeah,
Yeah,
wilderness and native are the same thing, right? Or
no, they're
no?
not. They're not.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a
It's
wilderness and a
perception.
native. Yeah,
Perception and wilderness are very similar. Yeah, the perception pescador. There you go, Curtis.
yeah,
So yeah, and within five to $600, a used wilderness or a perception pescador, 12 or 14, is definitely well within that budget. Um, and they'll actually probably give you some money left over to get some other gear that you may need. And of course, you can find many other kayak brands out there that fit your budget. Somebody brought up Vibe kayaks, and of course, there's a bunch of smaller, newer outfits that are out there. And of course, every brand now has their own pedal system. So if you wanted to get into that, I know Hobie has their budget pedal. What is it? Was it the Passport at like $1,300 around
yeah,
there?
yep,
Yeah. So you definitely have options out there. But one of the big pieces of advice that I would give to new people who are looking to get into kayaks is to demo the kayak, if at all
right.
possible.
Yes,
Demo.
right. Yeah, I know
So,
a lot of the kayak places they do demos, and
mhm.
it's a good opportunity for you guys to get out there and test these out. And if you have somebody that's in those kayaks, and see if you can. A DSK is actually a good page for that too. I know. I did a lot of test runs. A lot of other people did test runs on those kayaks to try them out before you buy them.
Oh yeah, I've actually had a couple people try out whenever I was out fishing. I was at the dike and I was coming back, and as I was loading up, this one guy came up and said he was very interested in the Hobie Revo, and he asked if he could try it out. I was like, yeah, sure, and he hopped in, went out there, did a couple rounds, and came back, and he actually that's when I was working at FTU. He actually showed up the next day and I sold him a Revo.
Nice, nice. Actually,
uh,
I met. That's funny stories. I met a guy on the Mosquito Island.
uh,
Same situation. Hey man, can I try that Outback hat? I want one because I like certain times of the year we don't give our guys a lot of love out there. Tech City Dyke. Appreciate you guys, but
mhm.
yeah, we fish there a lot. But yeah, actually sold an Outback that way. He jumped on that Outback. Same thing. He went out there. I was right there by Mosquito Island. Went out there and it's like, all right, man, I'm getting one, man. And I was like, all right, cool, And sure enough, not short long after that, he went and bought him one and messaged me and told me thank you for letting him
Yeah,
test ride it.
yeah, and there's a plethora of like kayak Facebook pages or kayak groups out there. I know if you listen to one of our episodes about like traveling and fishing with Timothy Rodman, um, that was a great episode. But he mentioned that one thing that he sometimes does when he travels, and he can't take everything with him, is to go online and find these groups and just ask. And I'm sure like you go into DSKA or go to TKF and say, I'm really interested in XYZ kayak. Is there anybody who has one to try? I'm sure that somebody would respond, hey, let's go fishing, and afterwards we can try it out, or
Right.
something like that. So if I know right now we're in a kind of this weird situation with COVID going on, and I don't know how the demos are working at the moment. But if there's no demos working, if you go to ACK, FTU, or any other kayak dealer and said I want to try out these kayaks, and they don't have these kayaks to try out, go online and ask around and see if you can find one, and I'm sure somebody will be willing. This is one of the good things is that I think the kayak community is a great community. We share a lot of stuff, and
COVID. No, I'm just kidding. We share our COVID with everybody. No, no, we do share. We share a lot. That's a good point.
yeah,
But definitely test run. It's an investment. That's what a kayak is a big investment,
hmm
guys. And a lot of people they shortchange their investment. I see that happen more often than usual. They'll get a kayak for like maybe 3 or 4 trips, and they'll just give up kayak fishing and just say that's not it for me. When if you get in the right kayak, you tune into this episode, and we help guide you to get in the kayak that you need. So not all kayaks are made the same. They're not for everybody, and it's not for everybody's application. But definitely do some homework on that investment, because that's what it would be, is a good investment. And I think getting the right kayak would probably change people's perspective. I'm going to throw somebody's name out there. Please forgive me. But my buddy Jose, he didn't like kayak fishing, and I'm not going to name the brand of kayak that he was in, but I put him in a good kayak, and man, he's like, dude, I didn't know kayak fishing was like this. And he's like, man, I just in the wrong kayak. And I was like, yeah, man, just should have let me know sooner. I'd have helped you out sooner, bud. But yeah, being in the wrong kayak will ruin your chances of the experience of applying to what you're trying to apply, or apply to what your goal is.
Yep.
No,
I totally agree. And I've seen it. I've also experienced it whenever we have clients coming into FTU or anywhere else, and they buy a new kayak every few months because they just can't find that right one. And it's you definitely need to find the right one, because it can make it, like you said, it can make that big difference between you liking kayak fishing and you just completely hating it. And going back to like the Ascends, where they're just horrendous to paddle. They're stable, but they're horrendous to paddle. Beginners, whenever they get that as their first kayak, they get into their mind that this is what kayak fishing is. It's so you can't paddle anywhere, so I can't go that far, and this is what kayak fishing is. And then one day they're driving down, and they see somebody in like a Tarpon 160 just speeding along down down the road, and it's an investment, but it can make a big difference if you choose the right one. So definitely demo.
I remember fishing with Justin Simpson, and one of his kayaks was an Ascend, and he was always like, I was talking to him, and then I'd pass him up, and I'm still talking. He's like, I can't hear you. Can you stop? Can you slow down? And I remember being like, oh, damn, I got to slow down. Because I was trying to get to a spot, and I was always in that situation where I'm talking to him, and he's like, I can't hear you. We fished a lot together. And I was like, but he eventually ended up getting a kayak to keep up with mine.
Actually, so I thought, for me, I did a lot of research, and before I bought those Tarpon 160s as my first kayak, I thought those kayaks were going to be like I would never get another kayak. Like those were perfect for what I wanted, until one day we were out fishing, and we had a great day fishing. It was, we had, back when the limit for trout was 10. We had my buddy and I, we each had a limit of trout and a couple reds and a couple flounder on our stringers. And of course, whenever you have fish on a stringer, it makes paddling horrible. But we were going back to the ramp, and it was blowing like 20 miles an hour in my face in the Tarpon. I was having a rough time just towing these fish and trying to get into the wind. And of course, the current was also going against me. My buddy was in an Outback, and he was literally like, we were probably less than halfway there, and he was going circles around me, and saying, "You can do it. Just keep going." I was tired.
Was that Jay Lee over there doing that with you?
No, that wasn't him. He's like, "You can do it. Just keep going." And I was probably whining like a baby because I was tired. And he eventually left me. He just left. He just went. He booked it.
After he got tired of cheerleading you on, he was I'm done.
He's like, I'm out. He left me, and he went to the ramp, loaded up the kayak, went to frickin' Subway, came back, and when I finally got back to ramp, he was just freaking sitting there eating a sandwich. And I just got, I remember getting out of the kayak, and I just like fell in the water, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But then okay, maybe I should start looking into this pedal drive thing and see what it's all about. And after that, I never looked back. So
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I just remember the current being really, really bad around Clear Lake, Kima Channel area, and being in that Tarpon 120 and the Tarpon 160, and being like, man, I need to get me one of them pedal drives. And sure enough, it changed everything when I got into one.
yeah. Oh, and for those of you in the chat who like that story, he did buy me a sandwich, so I had a sandwich at the brand. So, um, I guess another before we kind of finish off our kayak topics, and I know we're kind of running low on time.
Yeah, these things are never long enough. I feel like, man, we leave
Yeah.
out so much information.
Oh yeah.
We'll have to revisit this topic for sure.
Yeah. But when is the best time to buy a kayak?
Right now,
Yeah, right now.
right now. Don't
Right
even
now,
hesitate.
right now, and until the winter, I should say.
Yeah. We have the best fishing going on right now. It's just the best time of year. It looks like they're transitioning over like small white shrimp to getting into those larger shad and those larger bait areas. They're starting to eat those bigger baits. We experienced that here recently in the last couple days. In some areas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the reason I say right now and into the winter is the best time to buy, that is, there's a couple reasons. So as Aaron in the chat is pointing out, so roughly around the October November time period is when the new models of kayaks come out. So right now it's 2021. The 2022s are coming out, and they're in stores right now. In order to make room for those 2022s, right now it's a little bit in a weird time because of how we have
yeah, I was gonna say right. Maybe
yeah.
this situation is typically this would be
Yeah,
the best time.
typically this would be the best time, but because
Yes.
everywhere has stock issues right now, so but generally right around this time they're getting rid of their previous year models to make room for the 22s or the newer models. So you can find good sales on new kayaks. Also, roughly around this time is when these larger kayak shops where they have large demo fleets, they switch them out for the newer models as well. So you could this is when they swap them out, so you could potentially buy a demo model kayak at a good price. Another reason why this time of year is a great time to buy a kayak is because people don't like kayaking in the winter. So
Some people don't.
some people don't,
Yeah.
but some people, what they do is they for whatever reason they're like, oh, I'm not going to go kayaking the next 3 4 5 months. Maybe if you're up north, everything's frozen over and kayaking's not a thing, or in this case it just gets really cold and people don't go kayaking. But they don't foresee that they'll need these kayaks for the next few months, so they rather have the money, or for whatever reason, they decide to sell the kayak. And you can find some really good prices for these used kayaks on the market around this time.
Yeah, because
So,
people are getting on the new ones as well. I think
yep,
Aaron brought up that good point. Yeah,
yeah,
people are selling their old ones and they want to upgrade to the new ones, these newer models. So it's a great opportunity to get a
yeah,
sweet deal on one of them.
yep.
Yeah,
And actually, along that vein, right before tax season as well.
yeah,
Actually, right after the tax season is, because they get their tax check. Uh,
yeah,
and they'll sometimes buy a new kayak and they'll sell their old one. So I've also found that's a good time. But
yeah. Taxes haven't been good to me, so good luck to you guys. Yeah,
Yep. um, so I guess yeah, we had there's just so much to talk about with kayaks, and I feel that we haven't even scratched the surface with this.
no, I feel like that was just the introduction,
Yeah,
right? Because we go into like the rod holders, the storage, things that are helpful, the storage
yeah.
capacities on these kayaks,
Hmm.
do's and don'ts while you're kayak fishing, with
The fish
different
finder too.
kayak models, fish finders, motors. I think motors are going to be the new thing for kayaks. They got these.
Boo,
Oh man, I
boo
think that.
motors.
Man, I think motors are going to be the future for kayak fishermen. I believe it, man. We'll see. I think we're slowly. I was saying this a couple years back, but when Torquedo started pushing their stuff, and I was like, man, I do a lot of long journeys, man. But imagine just, and even when I took one offshore, man, it made offshore fishing so much easier to go to the. We went to Corpus Christi pins. I went to the first one, and then like shot out to the first one, the 1 mile, and then shot out to, I think it's the 3 mile or 5 mile. I'm not too sure what it is, but right by the helicopter pad. And dude, I was still energized while everybody was beat, man. Everybody was like tired. And I'm like, dude, well, let's go grab a burger. Like, so we go fishing here in a little bit, like I just remember having a lot of energy, but I really think the motors are going to be a permanent stamp on kayak fishing.
I agree, and I don't like it, but I am interested in it, and I do see the applications in it. I just feel like I'm more for the human power. So
I
even
don't.
though pedaling is not the purest way for kayaking, I still feel that it counts because it's human powered, and but I do see the benefits of the motor. I'm not gonna, I know it's coming. Change is coming.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna.
Jay Lee and Curtis. Curtis brought up a comment, or he said a comment. It was funny. But Jay Lee also he brings up a comment. But Curtis was actually on the trolling motor out there when I first saw him on that kayak fishing. He had a trolling motor.
He did.
And I was looking at him like, oh man, that's pretty cool, man. And he said I didn't want to fish with him, but we fished by each other. He's joking. And Jay Lee saying get a boat. When you get a motor, you might as well get a boat.
Technically, once you have a motor in your kayak, it is a boat. You have to register as a boat.
Yeah, you do have make sure you do register your motor if you do get one.
Yeah.
But I don't have to put gas in my kayak or my motor.
Yeah.
We run them off. I would run it off electric. Still a lot more advantages on being on a kayak and a boat than versus a boat, in my opinion. Yeah, they got. I think that there's certain ones that have spot lock. There's all kinds of motors out there now. They're starting to integrate. They're making motors, trolling motors specifically for kayaks out there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Other than Torquedo, but there's other ones out there that are they're doing a lot of stuff for kayak fishermen out there, and I think it's just gonna grow, guys. Just give you a heads up.
So we've covered a lot of information, and it's just barely scratching the surface. For those of you who are in the live chat, if there's anything that you wanted to maybe for us to discuss the next time, just put it in the chat, and we'll kind of compile it all together, and we'll talk about it next time. This is definitely something we are going to revisit. I guess before we sign off, Merriel, any kind of final advice you want to give to potential people who are getting into kayaking?
Do your homework before you get that first kayak and do away with kayak fishing. I hate running into those kind of people like, yeah, it's just not my thing. And I always got to have a rebuttal like, well, what do you mean it isn't your thing? You fish, and it's like, yeah, man, I was in a Pelican or a Send or something. And it's just like, man, you got to try a different kayak, and so definitely do your homework. Do your homework. It's an investment in something you love doing and what we all love doing. So don't be afraid to ask questions. We're coming into a community where we welcome questions and we try to give as much as a knowledge or experience, which we made a lot of mistakes, and we're trying to help you guys not make the same mistakes that others have and we have.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely a good point. And of course, if you are too embarrassed to actually publicly ask your question, send us a message.
Good point.
Send us a message, and we'll be happy to answer it. Facebook.com/One Last Cast Podcast. Go there. We have a lot of information on there. Also, it's the same thing on our Instagram. If you want to see some cool fish pictures, we're posting more on that as well. So I think this has been a great episode. We're definitely going to revisit this. And
we missed a lot of great comments and questions. I'll probably go through them here a little while, but I was laughing through these comments, some of these comments, and a lot of these bring back memories too. So we'll go back to the comments, guys, and get back with you. But
Yep. So again, thanks for listening to the One Last Cast podcast. If you want to talk to us or leave a review, definitely leave a review. We have a
yes, leave
contest.
a review.
We have a contest going on right now. If you leave a review, you'll be entered into our contest for a rod. Around it's like $140 value rod that I have graciously donated by Chad Stir. And yes, leave a review on any of your platforms. Go look us up at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. And we'll be talking to you guys next time.
Take care, guys.